I'm Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief of USA Today, and this is Capitol Download. We're on Capitol Hill with Senator Mark Warner, Democrat of Virginia. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Susan.
You were a digital entrepreneur, a co-founder of Nextel. You've got 3 millennial daughters, and I know this has helped prompt you to think about the dramatic changes we're seeing in the American workplace, the digital economy, the sharing economy. How different is it today for American workers?
We're going through the most radical transformation in the workplace in the last 30 years, and nobody in Washington seems to be talking about it. 25 folks running for president, and I don't think any of them have mentioned the gig or sharing economy. So I started drilling down a little bit and saw that this disaggregation between the employer and the employee is completely changing the nature of what we call the social contract. You know, our parents' generation usually worked for the same firm for 40 years, and they got a pension, they got benefits, and they had some kind of social contract. Our generation, I think, has changed a little bit. We got defined contribution rather than defined benefit 401ks. This next generation, where they are in this sharing economy, the millennials, 80 million strong, they have no safety net at all. So no unemployment, no workman's comp, no disability. And I think as policymakers, we need to start thinking through some of these questions.
So the government didn't cause this trend, and the government isn't going to stop this trend.
Right.
So what is the government's role? What should the government be thinking about or doing because of this really fundamental change for a lot of American workers?
Well, I think we have to recognize that if there is no safety net, somebody who may be doing very, very well as a Etsy seller and Airbnb user and Uber driver and part-time consultant, they're doing fine, but if they hit a rough patch, they have nothing to stop them until they fall, frankly, back upon government assistance programs. So is there a way to rethink the social contract in this new gig economy? Should we think about new models that would improve both mobility and trying to make this new economy work better for people?
And of course, as you say, if I get sick, my company gives me a sick day. I get paid vacation time. I can contribute to a 401k. Do you worry what happens to these workers if there is no action by the government to try to establish a way to provide that kind of benefits for them?
If they have no safety net in there, I think there does raise a huge number of questions that, as policymakers, we need to think through. And it may not be the old model that's government-driven. It may be some public-private model, but we got to start the debate.
You know, it's interesting thinking about Uber. There's already litigation about who exactly is an Uber driver. Is an Uber driver an independent contractor? Is he or she an employee? Is that something that should be a matter of debate here?
Yes, Washington needs to be thinking about it, but not with necessarily the old models. So that's why we need to think about our banks. We need to think about opt-ins. We need to think about what's happening in Europe with the EU countries where they're trying new models as well. And I think at the end of the day, our goal ought to be not stopping this transformation, but making sure that there's greater opportunities and greater mobility within the gig economy.
So your 3 daughters, what's their view of this new economy, and what are their own expectations for what their work lives will be like?
I think, first of all, they've grown up with smartphones and computers. They've been totally connected. I remember a little bit freaking out as a dad 10 years ago. My daughters are 25 to 20 when the oldest were first getting on Facebook and thinking about what could happen. But they're totally comfortable with this. This whole generation is more willing to see disruptive change. That's good news. They are more tolerant. That's good news. They're not as prejudiced. So all those are good things. But they clearly don't have an expectation that they're going to work in one firm forever. They think they're going to cobble together a series of different opportunities. And again, it's not where do you work, but it's more what are you working on now. We are not going to slow this down. We're not going to slow globalization down. We're not going to slow this disaggregation between employer and employee down. So we got to figure out ways to make it work for people better.
Do you worry about Hillary Clinton being pulled left by this Elizabeth Warren wing of the party?
Well, listen, I support Hillary Clinton. I think that she's got a fine line to walk here. The Democratic Party is how you make sure you can build these coalitions. I also think with Senator Warren, she and I work on a lot of products and projects together in the banking area. And I think it's a healthy debate, but I do think at the end of the day, you win states like Virginia by appealing to the middle and appealing to the vast group of Americans who, quite honestly, are pretty turned off by politics at this point.
Senator Mark Warner, thanks for joining us on Capitol
Thank you, Susan.
Download.